Many thanks for staying with us on Channels Television and welcome to News at 5. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. It appears the disturbing trend of recent abductions may not be abating anytime soon as armed terrorists struck St. Mary's Private Catholic Secondary School in Papiri, Agwara local government area of Niger State in the early hours of today, abducting several students. Local sources report the assailants invaded between 3 and 4 a.m., overwhelming the school's security and then gaining access to the hostel. The exact number of students taken remains unconfirmed. According to a group, the Agwara reformers, the attackers arrived in large numbers, riding over 60 motorcycles and a van, targeting the Catholic boarding school in the dead of the night. During the assault, the school's gateman was shot but survived, sustaining serious injuries. But then the students and teachers were, however, forcibly taken away. A police public relations officer Wasiu Abiodun said tactical police units, supported by the military and other security forces, have since been deployed. Extensive search operations are ongoing in surrounding forests to secure the safe release of the abducted students, as the Commissioner of Police, Adamu Eleman, reaffirmed the command's resolve to ensure the students' safe return. Now, the Catholic Diocese of Kontagora has confirmed the abduction of students at a local school, reporting that the attack occurred between 1 and 3 a.m. In a statement, Diocesan Secretary Father Jatao Luka Joseph said the incident has caused widespread fear and distress within the school community. Now, the diocese strongly condemns the assault and expresses profound concern for the safety of the kidnapped children and their families. Father Joseph adds that security agencies were promptly notified and have launched coordinated efforts to secure the students' safe release. The diocese emphasized that it is working closely with security operatives, community leaders, and government authorities to aid the rescue operation. Meanwhile, the Niger State government has condemned the abduction of pupils from the St. Mary's School, describing the incident as deeply saddening and avoidable. In a statement, the Secretary to the State Government, Abubakar Usman, said the exact number of abducted pupils remain unknown as security agencies continue assessments and verification of the situation. The statement noted that the government had previously received credible intelligence indicating heightened security risks across parts of Niger North Senatorial District. In response, authorities had directed the suspension of all construction activities and the temporary closure of boarding schools in the affected areas as a precautionary measure. Despite this directive, St. Mary's School allegedly reopened and resumed academic activities without notifying or obtaining clearance from the government, a violation that placed pupils and staff in grave danger. The state government appeals to school owners, community leaders, and of course stakeholders across the state to adhere strictly to all security advisories to ensure the safety of the public. Now, in the meantime, the Northern States Governors Forum has expressed deep distress over the kidnapping of pupils and teachers from St. Mary's School in Agwara local government area of Niger State. Now, the forum's chairman and governor of Gombe State, Inuwa Yahaya, described the incident as a disturbing and unacceptable affront on the safety of children, reiterating that schools must remain centers of learning and not spaces of violence. And now the federal government says the abduction of the 23 schoolgirls has cast a somber shadow over the country, even as the United Nations mark the World Children's Day in Abuja with a strong call for action. The position of the federal government was reiterated by the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Mr. Atiku Bagudu, at an event to mark the day. He said the world must now unite against anyone who threatens a child, adding that the global community has the resources to provide every child with education, safety, and meaningful content. Our correspondent, Benny Ark, tells us more.
The United Nations and UNICEF have launched the Nigerian Child 2025 report in Abuja with a call to accelerate action to protect, educate, and secure the future of every Nigerian child. The event attracted top government officials, including the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, development partners, UNICEF country representatives, the UN resident coordinator, school children, and child-focused groups, all united by one message: Nigerian children deserve better. The United Nations resident and humanitarian coordinator in Nigeria, Mr. Mohammed Fall, set the tone for the event, stressing that children must be at the center of national development.
Every child, everywhere, deserves protection, dignity, and the chance to grow and thrive. As we gather here today, we are also reminded the urgent need of more, and the urgent need to do more for children.
Children from various schools also took to the stage, speaking on their rights, their future, and what they expect from the government.
Brings national investment in education, healthcare, and child welfare beyond the current 16%.
In his remarks, the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Mr. Atiku Bagudu, expressed the nation's deep pain over the abduction of 25 schoolgirls, calling it a tragic reminder of the risks children still face.
As we are speaking, 23 of those brave, courageous girls are elsewhere, rather than where we want them to be. And this is a collective, as captured by the Vice President and the President. This is a collective assault on humanity, wherever it happens.
He also underscored the need for stronger global collaboration, noting that nations must work together to tackle abductions and insecurity.
Investment in any child around the world is investment that will pay off for every one of us and for everyone. So there's not even a choice. So we must be united. We must be united. We must be together. We must think together.
After the event, UNICEF country representatives briefed journalists on urgent priority areas, including health, education, and safety, warning that Nigeria must move faster to secure children's rights.
But we really need to scale up. I have just to say, what we are doing now, if you look at the needs, it's not, we all think it's not good enough for.
To Kebbi State, where Governor Nasser Idris has queried the withdrawal of military personnel from the Government Comprehensive Secondary School Maga, which led to the abduction of schoolgirls in the Danko Wasagu local government area of the state. The governor expressed dissatisfaction that despite intelligence reports provided by the government, the military withdrew from the area. He then questioned who authorized the decision and notes that the military reportedly withdrew around 3 a.m. while the abduction occurred at about 3:45 a.m. The governor is now asking the military authorities to launch an investigation to determine who gave the order.
We have been asking questions: who authorized the withdrawal of the military? Because we know when orders were being given, particularly on the military, until when an order is being given, and why, how does the security withdraw from that school at that material time? That is our worry. And we also ask the military authority to also investigate and find out who gave that order.
And more reactions are still trailing President Donald Trump's threat to deploy U.S. military to address the killings in Nigeria. The latest is coming from Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka, who describes the plan as a mad agenda. Professor Soyinka, who admits there is nothing wrong asking or receiving help in any form, however expresses concern that the U.S. president appears to have a mindset already on the situation in Nigeria without bothering to find out the complexities in the country. The Nobel laureate was speaking after a meeting with Governor Hyacinth Alia in Makadi.
Hello. You don't just open your mouth and say, I'm coming to help you, whether you like it or not. and I'm coming with violence from outside, with poor, almost non-existent analysis of the complexities of where the problem is, and you say, I'm coming to help you, and I'm coming with guns a-blazing. And when we come in, it's going to be fast, vicious, and sweet. Now, is that the language of somebody whose head is correct? So, what else do you want me to say? Any government has an obligation to protect, to ensure the welfare of his or her citizens. There's no question about it. But at least have some respect for victims and those who are trying to find solution for the unacceptable situation.
Hyacinth earlier on his part used the occasion to clarify his stand on issues of land grabbing and killings in the state.
I still remain very firm that we have bandits, we have terrorists who come fully organized and destroy people, maim, kill. And the last time we had checked, as I have been consistently again, as I have been religiously stating and emphasizing, that their aim is to land grab. We do a lot of farms in here. So then it all started, you know, with farmer-herder conflict, and then before it graduated into this banditry. The fact is, when the bandits and the terrorists came, it never began with anything religion. So that wasn't the content at all they brought into beer here. So they just came to disturb our lives, to drive people away from their farms, and then to land grab.
Vice President Kashim Shettima has departed Abuja to represent the president at the G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg, South Africa. A statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the Vice President on Media and Communications, Stanley Kwacha, says this follows the decision of President Bola Tinubu to stay back in Nigeria and attend to security concerns in the country. The president had postponed his earlier scheduled trip to Johannesburg in South Africa to await further security briefings on the recent security incidents in Kebbi and Kwara states. The G20 summit, scheduled to take place from Saturday, November the 22nd to Sunday, November the 23rd at the Johannesburg Expo Center, brings together leaders from the world's top 20 economies, including the European Union, the African Union, financial institutions, among others. President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa, who also serves as the current president of the G20 group, had invited President Tinubu to participate in this year's edition. Now, the vice president is expected back in Nigeria at the end of the engagements. When we come back after the break, Nigeria's air capacity to fall again in the Q4 of the year 2025. That's according to IATA, the International Air Transport Association. That's on Business News. Join us again. Welcome back. Tackling the rising cost of equipment and the challenge of retaining skilled professionals in the radiography field is important for the healthcare sector. And that's the view of the lead speaker, Professor Felix Erondu, at the 57th Scientific Conference of the Association of Radiographers of Nigeria, which held in Lagos. Our three eminent Nigerians were also inducted as patrons of the association at the event.
Radiography, the heartbeat of modern diagnostics, is often described as the silent engine driving today's medical breakthroughs. To advance this vital practice, experts from every corner of the country have converged in Lagos for the 57th Scientific Conference of the Association of Radiographers of Nigeria. For the keynote speaker, one challenge towers above many: the sky-high cost of importing radiography equipment, a burden he says directly affects the quality of care patients receive.
For instance, an MRI machine, 1.5% MRI machine, is about $1.2 million. And you pay 7.5% on that. And then you bring it to Naira and Kobo, you're looking at billions of Naira and patients are expected to pay 70,000-80,000 per day on MRI scan. It probably take about 50 years for you to have a return on your investment.
Professor Arondo also draws attention to a second dilemma: the tides of migration and reverse migration, both of which continue to reshape the profession's workforce.
For people to feel comfortable working with you, they should not miss too much what they can get elsewhere. So to do that is you have to have capacity building. First, building capacity within the system.
While the exodus of trained personnel has thinned the radiographer to patient ratio nationwide, the Lagos State government insists it is ramping up efforts to improve welfare and retain skilled practitioners.
I commit as your governor to standing with the radiography profession, championing better working conditions and supporting initiatives that will elevate medical imaging services to world-class standards.
Two long-standing supporters of the association believe even more can be done. They call for sustained government backing and hint that a state-of-the-art radiography facility may soon rise in Lagos.
We will, by the grace of God, set up a center, a radiography center in Lagos, where we will put new equipment, where we will run internships, where we will run research, and when we have this sort of events, we will have our own convention center, so that we can do good things and compete globally with such associations as they are abroad.
And I'm using this opportunity to call on the federal government of Nigeria and other governments and the private sector to invest in this aspect of medicine. They are absolutely important so that we can have better healthcare system and people cured of their diseases and get well for the betterment of our society.
A major highlight of the day is the formal induction of three prominent figures: Lagos State Governor and billionaire businessman Sir Oluokeowo as patrons, and former Minister of Foreign Affairs General Ikemwachukwu as the grand patron of the association.
The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mr. Mohammed Idris, has called on independent broadcasters to collectively raise their voices against misleading narratives about Nigeria. He made the remarks at the 2025 Annual General Meeting and Conference of the Independent Broadcasters Association of Nigeria, IBAN. Our correspondent, Victoria Longjohn, tells us more.
It's the 2025 Annual General Meeting of the Independent Broadcasting Association of Nigeria, IBAN, a gathering that brings together independent and private broadcasting organizations in the country, including regulators and industry partners. The meeting, with the theme Broadcasting for Information Sovereignty, National Cohesion and Digital Security, focuses on the future of broadcasting, regulation and local content development. Conversations begin with a call to members to unite in unlocking the multi-trillion naira potential of the industry, the advertising challenges faced by members with corporate Nigeria, and the need to join forces with the federal government to tackle disinformation.
Must harness the 65% share of Nigeria's media market portfolio to employ greater proportion of media talents across all fields of the sector, and to unlock our potential of $25 billion media economy. We are also witnesses to the harmful marginalization of national broadcasters by the indigenous blue chip companies in preference of international TV stations in their advert choices. This inexplicable imbalance that must be confronted head-on sees these manufacturing and banking big brands raking profits from the Nigerian consumers.
Broadcasting cannot be neutral. Every prime-time bulletin, every talk show, every breaking news banner is an opportunity for a powerful intervention. We must be able to tell the truth, including uncomfortable truths, without fear.
Lending his voice to the conversation, the chairman of IBAN Boards of Trustees, Dr. John Momo, who is represented at the event by the General Manager Operations of Channels Media Group, Mr. Kingsley Uranta, delivered a compelling speech emphasizing the need for national cohesion at this time in Nigeria.
Broadcasting is one of the few forces powerful enough to build understanding and inspire hope, especially in challenging times like this. Whoever controls the story controls the perception and ultimately the future. For us in Nigeria, that means ensuring that stories are told by us. We must display the highest level of responsible journalism, broadcasting, where truth, facts, fairness, balance are uncompromised.
In his keynote address, the Minister of Information and National Orientation urged the industry leaders to help the world see Nigeria as it truly is and not through the lens of external agendas.
We must also address an emerging and troubling trend, which is the attempt by some international actors and interest groups to label Nigeria as a country of religious intolerance. Let me be very clear about this. This narrative is false, it is divisive, and it is built on misinformation. We must deny this narrative the oxygen that is required for it to sow this seed of disunity amongst Nigerians.
Done with speeches, the minister then confers a posthumous award on a pioneer independent broadcaster in Nigeria, Chief Raymond Dokesi, for his exemplary service and contribution to the Nigerian broadcast industry. IBAN is promising that this year's conference will spark renewed collaboration and progress, not just for the broadcast industry, but for Nigeria in general. From Abuja, Victoria Longjohn, Channels Television News.
Nigeria's air travel capacity is projected to decline for the second straight quarter in Q4 2025, according to new estimates released by the International Air Transport Association, IATA. IATA said the expected drop reflects a combination of higher operating costs, currency pressures, and reduced airline schedules, all of which continue to weigh on the country's aviation sector. The association noted that carriers operating in Nigeria are facing persistent challenges, including jet fuel price volatility and difficulties repatriating funds, which have forced some airlines to scale back capacity. South African Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee has cut the country's repo rate by 25 basis points, reducing the repo rate from 7% to 6.75% per annum. South Africa Reserve Bank Governor Lesetia Kanyongo made the announcement in Pretoria of South Africa.
Growth is looking steadier than last year. The outcome of the second quarter surprised on the upside, and the third quarter indicators are looking broadly positive. Our 2025 growth forecast has therefore been revised slightly higher to 1.3%. We continue to see growth nearing 2% over the forecast horizon. Employment has also been rising. Household spending has been relatively strong to date, supported by wealth effects, further withdrawals from two-pot pension savings, and lower inflation and interest rates. The MPC decided to reduce the policy rate by 25 basis points to 6.75% with effect from the 20th of November. The decision was unanimous. Members agreed there was scope now to make the policy stance less restrictive in the context of an improved inflation outlook.
Global coffee prices fell sharply today after U.S. President Donald Trump announced the removal of import tariffs on Brazilian coffee, a move aimed at lowering consumer costs and strengthening trade ties with Latin America. Analysts say the policy shift could benefit U.S. retailers and consumers through cheaper coffee products, but may place pressure on producers and other exporting countries facing heightened competition. The White House described the decision as part of its broader plan to curb inflation and support American businesses that rely heavily on imported agricultural commodities. A Norwegian energy company, Equinor, has signed a 10-year agreement to supply natural gas to the Czech Republic, strengthening the Central European nation's energy security amid shifting global markets. The long-term deal will ensure a steady flow of gas to the Czech Republic, supporting its industrial and residential energy needs while diversifying supply sources. Equinor said the agreement reflects its commitments to stable and reliable energy partnerships in Europe as nations continue to adapt to evolving energy demands and geopolitical pressures. And that's News at 5. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun.